What is going on, guys? I am Consumer Tech Review, and today I'm going to be doing a review of the CIY Gas67. If at any point during the video you want to check out this exact same keyboard or anything I use to mod it, there will be links below for the US, UK, Canada, and international links, and an AliExpress link below for the exact same listing that I got. But let's jump right into it, starting off with what's in the box. All right, so right away when you open this up, you see that there are stock, unlubed, blue screw-in stabilizers that are in a plastic case, and then the wires with them. This is awesome. There is then a black coiled cable, which is very cool. The coil is not massive, but it's very cool that it came in the box, especially for this price point. You then have the case wrapped in PE foam, which I did end up using for modding. And inside of the case, we have the polycarbonate plate, silicone PCB dampener, and then a PCB dampening pad, which is awesome. Then moving on from that, we have pour-on gaskets, case screws, stabilizer screws, stabilizer dampening pads, a small silicone dampener for the space bar, and then we have flip-up risers and rubber pads for the bottom. You even install those, which is so cool. This whole thing comes completely disassembled. Then you also get your user manuals, the PCB, an orange switch / keycap puller, and then a red screwdriver. Now the screwdriver is for both types of screws, both the case screws as well as those stabilizer screws. Now before the facts, opinions, and real life experience with this keyboard, here's how I built mine. First, I lubed and greased the stabilizers. I then took 2 layers of packing tape to the back of the PCB. You will see why I used this for the tape mod in an upcoming video. That will be next week's video. That's gonna be a banger. Tune in for it. But yeah, 2 layers of packing tape on the back of that PCB. Then for the case dampening, I used double-sided mounting tape. So something like 3M mounting strip tape kind of thing. That's what I used. It worked really well on this build. I did a little bit of that in the case for dampening. I kept that switch dampening pad, and then I put PE foam over that, and then I put the silicone dampener over that. Didn't use the dampener for the spacebar, as I wanted the spacebar to be a little bit louder. Now for the switches, I used Ajazz Diced Fruit Peach switches. These were hand lubed, fantastic switches, very decently priced. These will also be linked below to Amazon. I highly recommend these. I was actually very impressed with these switches. They sound and feel really, really good. They also pair with this keyboard quite well. And then I finished it off with some ACO PBT ASA profile keycaps, a kind of gray, black, and pink vibe going on. Now I did this because this actually doesn't have south-facing LEDs. I'm gonna get to that right away. No south-facing LEDs, which is, well, it's why the title is basically perfect and not absolutely perfect. The Peach switches do have interference with cherry profile keycaps in that north-facing position. So I was planning on using cherry profile keycaps, but because of that, we did end up using ASA profile keycaps. But now that that's out of the way, let's get to the build quality. Let's talk about it. Now the case, this is a 2-piece plastic case that does not snap together. Thank God it does not snap together. It screws in from the bottom with, I think, 8 case screws. That is great. I hate it when they snap together. This also makes it much easier to mod the gaskets if you want to in the future. With cases that snap together, it's kind of impossible to, or it's a lot more difficult. But with this one, if you did want to make those gaskets move a little bit more, you could do it because it's only case screws on the bottom. Now the case itself is very flexible. You can see me flexing it here. It's very flexible, but I'm not sure this is a bad thing because I would think from having a softer plastic being more flexible, this means that it will be able to absorb sound a little bit better. And overall, with the mods that I did, I mean, this thing sounds so stupidly good. One of my favorite builds I've ever done. But getting on to the looks, the case actually has a bunch of nice, cool features. So most of it is kind of this transparent but kind of matte finish. And then we have a little bit of a gloss lip around the edge, kind of where the keycaps start. There's kind of a lip there. This makes it just a little bit more unique. It doesn't look bad. It looks stylish. Stylish? Can you say that with keyboards? Is that weird? It looks good overall. I like it. I think they designed this well. Then as well, this has 1-stage flip-up risers and rubber feet on the bottom, which you actually put in yourself, which is so cool. Almost every single part of this board you put together yourself, including the flip-up risers, including the rubber pads on the bottom. That feels so much cooler to do. This was purpose-built to be built as a custom rather than kind of a custom. It's like, no, this is a custom. One more cool thing is that there's actually a switch kind of built into that space between the arrow keys and the rest of the keys, kind of what 65% boards would always have, that little bit of space there. Some of them don't, but most do, but they actually put a switch there. And this is a switch between Mac and Windows, which is very cool. That'll just kind of switch the functions up. This is a pretty cool utilization of space while also not putting a noticeable switch anywhere on the board, because really you just kind of move it and you have to know it's there. Now, overall, this is a very light board, but at the same time, this is one of my favorite boards I've ever built, so I don't know if that even matters. All right, let's move on to mounting style and dampening. First of all, this is gasket mounted. Do the gaskets have a ton of movement? No. Is it better than tray mounting? Absolutely. So the gaskets are pour-on gaskets. They don't really move that much. However, like I said, for modding, for the overall sound and acoustics of the board, this is much better. So even if it doesn't move, gasket mounting is just better, in my opinion, overall. Even though this is fairly stiff, it's definitely not gonna feel as stiff as something that is tray mounted. Now for case dampening, this doesn't come with any case dampening. I don't really care. There's not a whole ton of space in that case, which is why you saw I only do it a little bit of that double stick tape. The reason I did that is because it's so dense and it can stick down to that case, which would help take out vibrations more than something that's just flowy in there. A lot of you guys mentioned using polyfill, which I think is a very good idea. This is great because it would not restrict any movement at all from those gaskets. You definitely don't want to restrict the little amount that there is. So polyfill could be good, but again, that's a sound that's, well, sometimes it's good if that's what you're going for, but with this one, I'm definitely going for a louder build, and it came out really good. But then the rest of the dampening. So this comes with a switch dampening pad, which is awesome. This is something that you don't really ever see on keyboards this cheap, which is awesome. Then beyond that, we have stabilizer dampening pads, and there's more than enough, actually. You have plenty here. You could use these for other boards. That is incredibly premium. None of these things feel cheap. These feel as good as customs that you get these same things on. Like, the quality is there, which is incredibly impressive again. Then you have the silicone plate and PCB dampener. Like, that's very good. This is also not like the cheaper style silicone. I don't actually know the different levels or quality of silicone, but yeah, there's a difference, and this one is a nice one. It's cut very nicely. It's also completely translucent, which is great, rather than just being a white or a black, so that light can bounce through, because the RGB, well, we'll get to that. So overall, dampening is very good. No case dampening, but that's where you get creative. And you don't have to use all this dampening if you don't want to, because for the price point, I would be fine not using all of that, which still, it's gonna blow your mind if you don't already know the price when we get to the price and value section. But right now, let's move on to the stabilizers. Very important section. Now, they are screw-in stabilizers. This is awesome. Now, I've talked about this before. Bad screw-in stabilizers are not better than good plate-mounted stabilizers. So are these good? Well, I'm gonna just say it flat out. Yeah, they're very good. And I'm gonna say, they're very good. They're not quite as good as like Durock, okay? So don't expect that. However, these are very good. Firstly, they are not pre-lubed, and they're not even assembled. They come in that plastic tray like you saw before, so they're completely disassembled and ready for you to lube. That's just so cool. It's rare to see something this purpose-built. That's something I really appreciate. But the stabilizers themselves. Well, first of all, I lubed the stems with Krytox 205 Gray Zero. I did not lube the housings, and then I greased the wires with Dielectric Grease. That's all I did. No mods or anything here, and they sound and feel very good. Now, if I'm gonna compare it to another budget set of screw-in stabilizers, what comes to mind, I think with most people, is Keychron. Keychron has famously put a lot of screw-in stabilizers in cheaper, more budget boards. And I'm gonna tell you right away, these are far better than Keychron screw-in stabilizers. I do not like Keychron screw-in stabilizers. If you've used Keychron screw-in stabilizers, you probably don't like them either. However, these are far better than those. That is impressive on its own. So these are good screw-in stabilizers. Guys, there's so much to love about this board. Now, there is one little issue with the stabilizers, and that is to screw them in, you're not actually screwing into like a piece of metal. So like on a lot of screw-in stabilizers, you're actually screwing in a metal screw to like a metal bolt that's then inside of the plastic stabilizer. This is, you're screwing into plastic. So it does take quite a bit of force to get those screws to go into the stabilizers. However, a small price to pay for great stabilizers and a crazy price point. But take a listen to the stabilizers. This is how they sound. What? So good. All right, now let's talk about hot swappability, hot swap direction, and everything revolving around hot swappability. Obviously, this is fully hot swappable with 3 and 5 pin switches, and I'm just gonna get this off my chest now, which I think I already got off my chest earlier. This is north-facing LEDs. That is the only thing that really, for the price, this is the only thing that I wish that it had, and that's the only thing that doesn't make this a perfect board at the price point. But is there anything better than this at the price point? Better is subjective, but I'm gonna say for me, no, this is incredibly good. However, it's fully hot swappable with 3 and 5 pin switches, as you would expect, but obviously because it is north-facing LEDs, you're probably not going to be using cherry profile keycaps. However, a lot of switches actually don't have interference with north-facing LEDs with cherry profile keycaps, so just check your switches beforehand. However, the peach switches that I use, the Ajazz diced fruit peach switches, did have interference, so we had to go with ASA profile or any other profile, but that's what I just personally went with. Now, this doesn't have a battery, but for connectivity, this uses a USB Type-C for connection, and it's right there in the middle, which is very cool. And a little bit of a note with that is this is actually the only thing that it comes pre-installed on the board, which is a pre-installed daughter board. Yes, you heard me right. There is a daughter board on this board at this price point. It's crazy. It's crazy. Why would you buy a V1? Okay, I'm not gonna bring that back up. Buy this over a V1. Okay, this is the last time. All right, now let's talk RGB. It's very bright. It's very good. There's tons of different modes. There is obviously per key lighting. It's very bright. It's surprisingly bright. And the colors are incredibly vibrant. So the RGB is quite good. It's a translucent case, so this is important. If you did want to do shine through keycaps, pudding keycaps, clear keycaps, I'm thinking some smoky black keycaps that are fully clear with this smoky black transparent case, that would be awesome. I mean, that would be awesome. So if you want to do some RGB kind of cleary keycaps, go for it. The RGB is great here. All right, now the typing sound and feel. Obviously, this is very subjective, and this is obviously gonna be affected on how you build yours and how you mod yours, and well, actually how good you are at modding. But the way I modded mine, if you guys would just wanna copy that, oh my God, does this thing sound good. This is literally one of my favorite builds I've ever done. Now, do keep in mind, this is definitely a plastic case, right? This is not a metal case. It's not gonna sound like that, but you don't hear it. It doesn't sound plasticky, but the way I did mine, this is definitely one of my favorite builds I've ever done. It sounds so good. Considering the price point, damn. All right, take a listen to the sound test of the CIY Gas67. Take a listen. And that is how it sounds. Yeah, sounds pretty good. All right, now the most important section of the entire video, price and value. You guys know I am big on finding the absolute best value for you guys. That's why some videos I get very heated. It's because I want to get you the best value possible, and let's talk about it. As of filming the video right now, this is priced at, I'm not gonna get this wrong, I'm gonna read it, $48.83. Think about that. That is less than most keycaps. That is less than most switches that you're gonna put on this board. I think the peaches were 40 bucks in total. So basically the same price. This keyboard at this price point is unfreaking believable. A lot of you guys were telling me, you gotta check this keyboard out. It's so good. I was like, okay, it looks pretty good. And then I got it and I built it and I was like, how is this even possible? So if you do want a keyboard to get into custom keyboards, and if you don't need south-facing LEDs, if you're not gonna use cherry profile keycaps over something like more beginner plastic boards from Keychron's new to release V series, ACO boards, KBD67 Lite, I would recommend this one over all of those just because of how stupidly inexpensive it is and how good it is. Again, if you need south-facing LEDs and you have to have cherry profile keycaps, you're gonna have to go somewhere else, or pick some switches that will work with cherry profile keycaps. That's what I would say. Figure that out, go on Reddit. But oh my God, this is probably my most recommended custom keyboard under $100. Again, if you don't need south-facing LEDs, it is just so fun to mod and it's so good for the price. Again, if you wanna check it out, there is an AliExpress link below, the exact same listing. There's quite a few listings of this, so the exact same listing that I got, just to make sure that everything in the review will be true for you, that AliExpress link is below, and the switches I use, the keycaps, and everything else I use to mod it will also be linked below to Amazon or wherever website it is. And I also do wanna say, getting it from AliExpress, it was supposed to be a little bit over a month to get here, but it got to my house after being ordered in 2 weeks, which is pretty cool. So there you go. All right, this week's consumer tech review. You guys were so right about this board. Make sure to tune in for next week's video on Sunday, 8 a.m. Eastern time. It is going to be a banger, and it will also make you realize why I used packing tape for the tape mod on this board. All right, this is a consumer tech review, and I'll see you guys in the next video.